Welcome back. Let's be real for a second, you hate your boss, don't you? Don't deny it. Maybe he makes you file reports at 5:00 p.m. on a Friday. Or maybe she calls you at midnight just to ask for the office Wi-Fi password. Toxic. Absolutely toxic. But hold on before you jump on Twitter or X whatever to write a 3-page rant exposing your company. Take a deep breath and thank the universe that you are living in the 21st century. Why? Because at least your boss, no matter how terrible they are, isn't making you collect seashells to fight the god of the sea or nailing a hat to your skull just because you forgot to say hello. Today, we are going to review the absolute worst bosses in history, the people who hold the championship belt for human resource nightmares, to see who really deserves the title of the person who would make you want to rage quit existence. Let's kick off this chaotic journey in ancient Rome, the cradle of civilization and the factory of absolute drama queens. Meet Caligula, also known as Little Boots. Caligula started out as a certified good boy when he first took the throne, young, handsome, wiping out tax debts, freeing political prisoners. The Roman public thought they had finally scored a leader with a heart, but that happiness lasted about as long as a Snapchat streak. After a near-death illness that caused his brain's operating system to suffer a massive blue screen of death, Caligula rebooted as version 2.0, full of glitches and maximum paranoia. The first thing he did, declared himself a living god and ordered all the heads on the statues of gods in Rome to be replaced with his own head. Imagine going to church to pray for a girlfriend, looking up and seeing your boss's face grinning back at you. Creepy, right? But the peak of his absurdity was his war with Britain. Caligula gathered the most powerful army in the world and marched to the coast of France. But instead of crossing the Channel to fight the British, he decided the real enemy was Neptune, the god of the sea. He ordered his elite soldiers to run to the water's edge, stab the ocean, slash the waves, and throw rocks at the water to intimidate the Atlantic. After a fierce battle with sea foam, he ordered his troops to pick up seashells, put them in their helmets, and called them spoils of war to parade back to Rome. And he wasn't done. To humiliate the aristocrats in the Senate, he planned to appoint his favorite horse, Incitatus, as consul, the highest political office in the land, and even gave the horse a marble stable. This is the original definition of a Nepo baby, except this time, the baby was a horse. Eventually, Caligula was logged out of life by his own security guards in a back alley, leaving us with a valuable lesson: never troll your security detail too hard. If Caligula was just a crazy clown, our next character is the embodiment of pure terror. Leaving Rome, we head to Wallachia to meet Vlad III, better known as Vlad the Impaler. Forget those sparkly vampires from Twilight. The real Vlad was infinitely cooler and way more brutal. Stuck between two giants, Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, Vlad grew up as a hostage and learned exactly how to torture people for maximum pain. When he took power, he faced some disrespectful Ottoman envoys who refused to remove their turbans to greet him, citing local custom. Vlad decided to help them keep their hats on forever by nailing the turbans directly into their skulls. It was a diplomatic maneuver that went straight to hell, but you have to admire the commitment. Vlad's peak installation art was the Forest of the Dead. When Sultan Mehmed II led a massive army to invade, instead of a direct fight, Vlad prepared a horror show: 20,000 Ottoman prisoners impaled on giant wooden stakes lining the road to the capital for 3 kilometers. The sight of rotting corpses and the sky black with crows was so traumatizing that Sultan Mehmed II, the guy who conquered Constantinople, literally threw up and decided to nope out of there immediately. Vlad won the war without fighting a single battle, purely thanks to his shish kebab skills and psychological warfare. Leaving freezing Europe, we head to the tropical island of Madagascar to meet Queen Ranavalona. I often called the Female Caligula. While other monarchs killed for politics, she killed because of superstition and failed startup ideas. She utilized a judicial system called the Tangina Ordeal, a deadly game of chance where a suspect had to swallow 3 pieces of raw chicken skin and a poisonous nut. If you vomited them up, you lived. If you didn't, you died from the poison. This gotcha game of a justice system wiped out about 2% of Madagascar's population every single year. Sometimes she'd get bored and force thousands of her own staff to drink the poison just to test their loyalty, paralyzing the government, because, well, everyone was dead. Ranavalona was also a disastrous project manager. One fine day, she wanted to go on a buffalo hunt, so she mobilized 50,000 civilians to build a road through the jungle just so her carriage wouldn't bump. The result of this fun little trip, 10,000 people died of starvation and exhaustion along the way. And the most painful plot twist: she didn't catch a single buffalo. The queen got bored, turned around, and went back to the palace, leaving behind 10,000 corpses and a useless road in the middle of nowhere, the ultimate proof of bureaucratic torture. Back to the freezing Russian winter, where vodka flows like water, we meet Ivan the Terrible. He is a textbook case of how childhood trauma creates a twisted personality. Orphaned early, bullied by nobles, and locked in closets, Ivan grew up hating the world and suffering from severe paranoia. When he gained absolute power, he founded the Oprichnina, the first secret police force, who dressed in all black, rode black horses, and carried a severed dog's head and a broom on their saddles. The message: we will sniff out traitors like dogs and sweep them away. But Ivan's greatest tragedy wasn't political, it was domestic. He loved his eldest son and heir, Ivan Ivanovich, but Ivan Sr. was a toxic father-in-law. One day, seeing his daughter-in-law dressed immodestly by his standards, Ivan beat her, causing her to miscarry. When his son rushed in to defend her and argue in a fit of uncontrollable rage, Ivan Sr. struck his son in the head with a pointed iron staff. The moment he snapped out of it and cradled his son's body, screaming in agony, was the moment he realized he had single-handedly destroyed his own future and his dynasty. That famous painting by Repin showing Ivan's terrified eyes is the perfect snapshot of a man who has absolute power but is completely alone and broken. And finally, the final boss of this list isn't a screaming madman or a bloodthirsty warrior, but a polite gentleman and a successful entrepreneur, Leopold II of Belgium. He is the embodiment of cold, calculated corporate evil. Not content with being the king of tiny Belgium, Leopold conned the entire world into giving him the Congo in Africa, calling it the Congo Free State. Sounds democratic, right? Wrong. It was his private property, a massive labor camp dedicated to harvesting rubber. Leopold imposed impossible rubber quotas on the native population. And the penalty for missing your KPI wasn't a pay cut or a meeting with HR, it was amputation. Leopold's private army was ordered to chop off the right hands of anyone who didn't bring in enough rubber to prove to their superiors that they weren't wasting bullets. Baskets full of severed hands, men, women, and children, became the horrifying symbol of his regime. Leopold II never even set foot in the Congo. He sat in his luxurious palace in Brussels, drinking tea and counting money made from the blood of approximately 10 million people. He was a monster in a tuxedo, proving that the scariest kind of evil is the guy sitting in an air-conditioned office signing papers and treating human lives like numbers on an Excel spreadsheet. History isn't just dry dates and numbers. It's a collection of absolute lunatics with unchecked power. Caligula taught us not to let an edgelord run the military. Vlad showed us the thin line between hero and monster. Ranavalona and Ivan proved that paranoia destroys nations. And Leopold II reminded us just how brutal corporate greed can be. So the next time your boss asks you to work overtime or a client cancels at the last minute, just smile. Be grateful for labor laws, human rights, and the fact that your boss isn't allowed to chop off your hand if you make a typo or force you to hunt buffalo in the jungle. Thanks for listening to this dark but entertaining story. Smash that like and subscribe button so I can afford instant noodles and don't have to go collect seashells for a living. Autant.